The world teetered. It was October 27, 1962, a Saturday. Few truly understood the proximity of the abyss. DEFCON 2, a breath away from war. Strategic Air Command bombers laden with payloads capable of unimaginable destruction circled their designated fail-safe points, endlessly waiting. Deep beneath the ocean surface, nuclear submarines patrolled, each carrying enough firepower to obliterate entire nations. The Cuban Missile Crisis had stretched global nerves to their breaking point for 13 agonizing days.
In Washington, D.C., President John F. Kennedy and his advisors were locked in tense deliberations. Across the globe, in Moscow, Premier Nikita Khrushchev faced his own pressures. The military machines of two superpowers were fully mobilized, hair triggers set. The stakes were the continued existence of human life on Earth.
Then it happened. The spark in the powder keg.
Over the island of Cuba, a United States U-2 spy plane, piloted by Major Rudolph Anderson Jr., soared at high altitude. Its mission to gather crucial intelligence on Soviet missile deployments. Suddenly, a Soviet-supplied SA-2 guideline surface-to-air missile streaked upwards. It found its mark.
The U-2, a fragile bird in the hostile sky, was struck. It tumbled from the heavens, a burning wreck carrying a dead American pilot. The news crackled through secure channels, landing like a physical blow in the White House Situation Room. President Kennedy received the report. His face, already etched with fatigue and worry, hardened.
He had explicitly warned the Soviets, any attack on American reconnaissance flights would be met with a swift and decisive response. Now that line had been crossed. The hawks in his cabinet renewed their calls for immediate, overwhelming force. The pressure to act to demonstrate American resolve was almost unbearable. President Kennedy made his choice. He authorized a limited airstrike.
U.S. fighter bombers were to target the specific SA-2 missile battery that had downed Major Anderson's U-2. They would also hit other known SAM sites across Cuba.
The objective was clear: neutralize the immediate threat to reconnaissance flights and send an unmistakable message to Khrushchev.
The American jets screamed in low over Cuban soil. Bombs fell. Explosions rocked the island. But the Soviets on the ground were not passive observers.
They had tactical nuclear weapons, short-range Frog 7 lunar missiles, and local commanders possessed pre-delegated authority to use them if attacked. In the chaos and fear of the American airstrikes, one Soviet commander, perhaps believing the full-scale invasion had begun, gave the fateful order.
A single low-yield nuclear warhead was launched. Its target, the U.S. naval blockade fleet or the invasion staging areas in southern Florida.
The missile found its mark not against a ship, but against the city of Miami. The flash was blinding, even in the bright Florida sun.
A roiling, malevolent mushroom cloud climbed into the sky. The city of Miami was incinerated in a heartbeat. The response was swift, it was massive, it was final. Strategic Air Command bombers, already airborne, received their authenticated launch codes. They veered from their holding patterns and raced towards targets deep within the Soviet Union and its allied nations. Simultaneously, from hardened silos buried across the American Midwest, Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missiles roared to life. They climbed on pillars of fire, arcing through the stratosphere, their multiple warheads programmed for destruction. Polaris submarines, hidden in the depths, launched their own deadly payloads. Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, Minsk, Washington, D.C., New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, London, Paris, Bonn, Beijing, all became primary targets. The first wave struck with devastating precision. Hydrogen bombs, many hundreds of times more powerful than the weapon that had vaporized Hiroshima, detonated over sprawling urban centers. Cities that had stood for centuries vanished in superheated firestorms. Millions died in the first hour.
Years crawled by under a sky choked with gray, persistent dust. The sun became a pale, distant memory, a ghost in the perpetual twilight. Nuclear winter, long predicted by scientists, had become a grim reality. Temperatures plummeted globally, crops failed, famine stalked the irradiated lands. Nations, as they had once been known, ceased to exist. Governments had evaporated in the fireballs, their leaders turned to shadow and ash. The intricate tapestries of society, law and order unraveled completely, leaving behind a brutal struggle for mere survival. Survivors, gaunt and haunted, huddled in the skeletal ruins of once great cities or eked out a desperate existence in remote, less affected pockets of the world. They scavenged for uncontaminated food and water, battled radiation sickness, and fought off desperate marauders. New, brutal forms of power began to emerge from the pervasive chaos. warlords commanding ragged militias carved out fiefdoms in the ruins. Perhaps in the less devastated southern hemisphere, new, hardened societies slowly began to coalesce. The long, dark night of nuclear winter was about to descend upon a shattered world.